catalyzing incubators who is catalyzing the CSR activities also. So the activities which startups do, creating a bigger impact, or like it's really an impactful change in the society. If the change is not drastic, and the regular ways of NGOs doing it was not that pace of the startups do. So we believe like startups can create that change in a fast-paced manner by leveraging technology. So here we wanted to introduce you to two startups who are working in creating impact in the society. So there are a lot of like there is a lot of space or like challenges happening in the society, or where we need like validation, or like where we need like momentum and acceleration to create that impact. And like we believe the two speakers of today, or like two startups of today, did in a bigger way. Wherever we find a social problem, we can figure out a way where we can solve with technology, or if we can solve it with a startup or an entrepreneurial mindset, which can create a bigger change in the society. At the same time, there is a economic feasibility also comes in. There are two major contributors of such success, is lack of resources and lack of partnerships. So here we wanted to bring both of them together, like the foundations who is working with like who is ready to spend money on like creating impact, and on the other side the startups who is like don't have like availability to the resource, or access, or lack of critical partnerships. So we wanted to bring or bridge the gap between the startups and foundations through CSR Fridays. And the new amendment happened in CSR Act in India, like the February amendment happened. It is that mandate is allowing CSR contributions on incubators and startups, and it really opened up like a horizon of opportunities to startups to avail resources, even partnerships, or like even kind of seed grants from innovate through CSR. So the startups today, like Sath Health and Kickstart, who are here with us, they all work with bigger corporates, or they're trying to create value and a change in the society. And I would like to start with how we're going to take this program. So here we have Aditi Hasragancho, founder of Sath Health, and Srikrish Shiva, founder of Kickstart Caps. So firstly, like Aditi will be sharing her experiences and journey with the CSR and the foundations from her experience with Sath Health and her career, and she will be like giving a presentation on it. And then we will be moving to Srikrish and how he's trying to create that impact and leverage CSR at Kickstart's Cabs. And after that, we will have a brief discussion with both of them, with few of the questions which you send and the forms. And then we will have the question answer session, which is open to the panel. So here I welcome first up Ms. Aditi, the co-founder of Sath Health. So Sath Health is building an AI-powered toolkit for healthcare product companies to deliver target interventions and positive outcome in health consumers. So they're the team of doctors, communication specialists, engineers, scientific content writers to build together build a digital platform to personalize health consumer experiences to drive positive outcomes. We can listen to Aditi's story directly from her. We request Aditi to take the floor and share the CSR journey with the Sath Health. Please, over to you, Aditi.
Thank you so much, Eben, and it's nice to be here with such a nice panel and all of you attendees. We hope to add some value in your journey today. Just give me a minute while I pull up my slides. So I think we have about 10 minutes here today. So what I'm
Yes,
going to
yes.
do is run you through a set of slides, and also we're going to talk about some of our journey, how it's been for us. But in the end, I really wanted to share with you some lessons that we learned during our journey about social impact. And I think that's what I think will be most valuable to the startups and the founders here today. So let me get right to it. So as Eben mentioned, Sath Health is building AI-powered digital tools to personalize and deliver digital health. We've been in existence for about 3 years now. This is, for me, it's my third organization that I've founded. Akash and I are the co-founders of Sath Health. We've been a part of private and public healthcare for close to 2 decades now. And we realized collectively our experience taught us that we can have a greater impact on reaching more people and influencing digital health if we have a strong, robust digital health platform. So the Sath Health platform has delivered impact at scale. And how we did this was when we started our journey, our first effort was towards building a children's health platform where we reached children via their parents in the slums of Mumbai and Delhi with infotaining content and discounted products and services delivered via a mobile application. This addressed gaps in children's health in India. This was targeted towards parents of 0 to 6-year-old kids. And we had a companion application which was deployed in Kirana stores to track point redemption. With this application, we were able to show significant impact. We were able to show 70% reported increase in children's protein intake across the 110,000 families that we reached in a span of a year. So this was how our entire story began. And obviously, when you're beginning your journey and you see so much impact, it excites you. But the reality is that to make something like this sustain, you need to have a strong foundation. You need to build a business model where you can continue to deliver impact at scale to a larger population. So what we're currently doing is that we are trying to reach out to more and more people by partnering with public health organizations and achieving impact at scale with multiple deployments of the same application, but repackaged in various ways. So one of our offerings is the Sath Health Family Health app, which targets 1 million users to reach 1 million users by December 2022. We also have an application which is in the prototype stage, which supports learning outcomes in healthcare workers like the ASHA and A&M workers. And lastly, we are working on a tool for neuropsychiatry disorders, supporting dementia patients with digital tools. So that's what Sath Health is currently doing. What we currently have is a modular disease agnostic platform to influence positive health outcomes. And here, the same platform that we used to build the children's health application, we have now white labeled it and packaged it as a modular platform. And it has been split into modules like the content aspect of it, the notifications, the gamification, the personalization, the rewards, and the AI recommendations. And we can then repackage it and deploy it for multiple use cases such as maternal and child health, which we have done already, family health, which has recently been launched, neuropsychiatry disorders, and health worker training. And what we can achieve through this is increase in digital engagement metrics, increase in health awareness, improve the health behaviors, and improve clinical outcomes. And our goal is to target the SDG goal of 3.4 in reaching with health information. So what sets us apart is our approach. We are very, very outcomes focused. We keep the user at the center of everything that we do. And we make the content and the journey for the user engaging, motivating, personalized, and a very delightful experience for them. At the same time, we are extremely data driven so that we can actually draw out from the analytics that we're putting together and use that to constantly iterate the platform and the product. In addition, Sathil has built a set of proprietary AI algorithms, and this is what is the key to our personalization. So these AI algorithms were built based on 15 million consumer data points that we collected during our first children's health deployment. So in addition to user segmentation, which is, if you're a particular age or a gender or in a geography, we will surface certain types of content to you. We'll also have your journey tailor-made depending on your digital phenotypes. And we've identified these 6 different digital phenotypes based on which, on the basis of which most users behave. And how this is of value to health organizations is that it helps them optimize their marketing spend. It helps them augment their platform engagement, improve the behavior towards health-seeking behavior, and increases the lifetime engagement of the user on the app. And with every deployment, what we do is we try and track the impact metrics. And our platform can adapt real-time impact reporting based on the partner priorities. So if you're partnering with an organization that is looking to influence clinical outcomes, we will draw from the bucket of impact metrics which are in the clinical outcomes space. Or it could be engagement related, it could be knowledge shifts, it could be behavior shifts, or clinical or business outcomes. So every deployment for us becomes an opportunity to then put an impact monitoring plan in place, and then to see how well that plan is working. So essentially, our business model is to take the same tools, the same sort of platform core, along with the behavior change content and the AI algorithms, and deploy them differently for the health sector partner that we are currently catering to. So if you're working in public health, we work in a certain way with the same tools. If you're working for pharma commercial, we would deploy it in a certain way. And same for health systems, health insurance, digital health companies, and so on. And what our business model is to charge a user license fee for the digital tools, and offer content development and analytics insights as a service over and above that. So this is a little bit of background about Sath Health. What I wanted to do was also share some learnings in terms of how the journey has been for us, and what we think you as a startup founder might value. I think for most SMEs and startups, it's okay to say it's survival first. Much like when you're on an airplane, the instruction you receive is, put on your own oxygen mask first, and then you try and help others. Similarly, if you as an organization cannot survive, you cannot help others survive. So it's fine for you as a startup to say that it is my survival first. I need to make sure I'm okay, my organization is surviving, and then look at how this impact journey can be built in. The second is that the impact journey need not be a separate activity. It should ideally integrate into your core offering. So what is it that you're trying to do that is best aligned with which social development goal, or which kind of impact that you want to achieve, and integrate that right from the beginning into your core business offering. It doesn't make sense to think of it as an expense. It makes sense to think of it as an opportunity for you to differentiate yourself as an organization, for you to really impact society. It's a great way to attract talent as well. It's okay for you to start with small steps and small gestures and scale as the organization grows, because what ends up happening is that what you need to be a social impact organization is to say that you are a social impact organization, find a way to monitor it and report it. And as long as you're doing these few things, you are able to achieve social impact. I think that was my last slide. And we have been fairly lucky to be associated with Google for Startups, which is actually a SDG startup advisory selected by National Health Authority for their market access program. And all of these illustrious partners have actually encouraged us and supported us in our journey towards being an impact-focused organization. So that's all from me. Thank you. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Aditi. So we will come back to your questions after both the presentations and the panel
Sure.
discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing the like how you went through this journey and like the challenges that happen. Now I'll move to Srikrush Shiva, who is a founder of uh, Kickstart Cabs. So Kickstart Cabs provides transportation services to the people in India who are physically challenged, and they offer vehicles which are equipped to accommodate people who are using wheelchairs, and they help to commute at the maximum comfort and safety. Miss Vidya Ramasubramanian Subban, while not present in this panel, has taken over 3 decades of experience in serving people in the community together, working to significant issue to attend the special needs of such people while respecting their dignity. To make this facility more affordable, Kickstart recently introduced e-rickshaw to serve middle and lower middle class people, and they have reduced their operating costs significantly by introducing electrically operated rickshaws. So without further order, we would like to give the stage to Srikrush to share how they are trying to leverage CSR initiatives of corporates to enable them, which is like addressing a critical problem in the society through Kickstart Cabs. Over to you, Srikrush, please.
Thank you, Eben. I seem to be having a little bit of technical issue. Just give me 1 second in terms of sharing. I just rebooted. I'm sorry, I just put a new hard drive in this and I had to install everything brand new. But I'll just get this sharing preferences sorted. It'll take 1 second.
So meanwhile, if any of the startup who is attending like want to give a quick heads up or like share their maybe a intro, we can listen to a few of them while Srikrush is getting ready with his presentation.
Hi, Eben. This is Reshma.
Hi.
I would be glad to introduce myself here. So I was very much relating to ma'am's presentation earlier because on the same lines is what we are also trying to do with our app. So with our app, we are basically focused on resource fulfillment for all the NGOs and childcare homes in our country so that we are enabling the kids to have that regular intake of resources in terms of groceries, stationery, and clothing material. And apart from that, we also want ourselves to be a very valuable, impactful resource to help them with commercialization skills. So once they are out of those homes, they should have some skills in hand so that they can make themselves inclusive in the society. So they can earn for themselves, they can be a responsible citizen. So a concept of skill donation as well is something which we are introducing with our app. So I would very much like to share the presentation and have an introduction meeting, maybe sometime later.
We will connect with you offline to know about what the work you are doing, and surely we can help you in connecting with foundations who can support you also. Thank you, Reshma. Anyone else?
Aditi, it was a fantastic presentation, and Eben, thank you for arranging this. I truly appreciate this. It's a great opportunity to exchange what our learnings are, and also it was great to learn from Aditi what her thing has been, what her journey has been. So I will pause at each and every slide and then take you through in our journey. At the end of the session, any questions you have, I'll be very happy to talk. Very happy to talk about something that I want to. I observed in Aditi's presentation at the last slide, particularly, is the very fact that she's been blessed with a lot of CSR funding. We are pretty much at the opposite end of that, and I'm here to make the case as to why CSR funding is essential for a journey like what Aditi has had, and also how scaling can be done for any of social enterprises. We are practically a bootstrapped organization. We got a little bit of funding from Mphasis early when we started, for which we invested a lot in buying vehicles, which are very, very capital intensive. And along the way, we have learned quite a bit about how to manage our capital and how to grow the business and so on and so forth. So a little bit of a background about Kickstart. We've been providing. We are India's first accessible public transportation provider, and we've been operating for over 7 years, and we have provided over 100,000 rides. And we have plenty of B2B partnerships. We provide our services to a lot of companies, including ANZ, Wells Fargo, Deutsche Bank, Dell, Northwest. In the past, we provided for Wipro, SAP, ThoughtWorks, and so on. We also have partnership with a lot of hospitals who are our primary users for providing for senior citizens as well as people with disability. You can see a whole bunch of recognition, the awards, and so on. Most recent one being the NASSCOM's IAI Early Stage Innovation Award for our product. The one thing that I wanted to mention in comparison, when you look at a software product versus an asset-heavy product like ours, is the scaling is a little bit easier when it comes to a software product, depending on the complexity of the product. Whereas this will be something that you will find out in your startup journeys as well, that if you have a capital intensive product, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult to scale. And I will come to that shortly in the next slides as well. So this is our journey, and we've been very happy with the journey so far. We always, of course, we always feel that it could be a lot better as well, but it is what it is right now. If you look at the problem per se as to what exactly happens in terms of transportation for people with disabilities, on the left side you'll see it takes a couple of people to actually lift a person and transfer a person into the car, and it is a compromise on the dignity. It is and because of which a lot of people don't choose to travel at all. People say, okay, we would rather be at home rather than having be touched by strangers or family members who will pull us and put into another car. And then again, for every single journey, this thing has to happen twice, getting in, getting out, and so on. So there are so we thought about it. We saw it that in other countries there are facilities that are available where a wheelchair can go directly inside. So that's the inspiration for us. We said, okay, we'll get it started in India as well. But we didn't know much about getting started in India, what the regulations are, because that's one of the things that we just wanted to start, and we just started. That's it. So we got a little bit of money, and we bought a few vehicles. We started with 1 vehicle, and pre-COVID we were operating close to 30 vehicles. Now, one of the things that happens in these vehicles is that you take some of these large vans, and then you put like a ramp or a hydraulic lift to enable the wheelchair to go inside. And generally, these vehicles are very, very expensive, and that's what I meant by capital intensiveness in this particular segment. And very often, because it is capital intensive, and because the number of people who are going to be served are a lot lesser, it's not a very conducive marriage for a lot of people who are investing in vehicles. So that's where it is important to have the CSR mechanism, so that this kind of operation can continue. So if you look at these vehicles, these are pretty expensive, and therefore the cost of the ride also becomes very, very high. Now, as a social enterprise, one of the things that we have always focused on was to provide the service not just for people who are rich or people in the upper economic strata, which is what this particular kind of modification does. Because it's a bigger vehicle, cost is higher, only the rich people or the upper middle class people can afford it. So we had to come up with something that will make sense for the Aam Aadmi. So we ended up developing an accessible electric rickshaw sort of vehicle. It is it's wheelchair accessible. It is low cost, very affordable, and it enables shared rides so that, when a person with disability travels, he or she can share the ride with two able-bodied people. And, that makes it so much more nicer. People will get to know our idea is to build an inclusive society. And as more people see a disabled person on wheelchair travel along with them, it just becomes a commonplace thing. So, they're not discriminated. They can go anywhere they want. And so that is our vision, and that is the impact that we want to create. And as a bonus, this also happens to be an electric vehicle and therefore a zero emission vehicle. Now, the impact, if you look at it, what we believe is that the vehicle transportation shouldn't be a barrier to go to work for a lot of people, right? Right now it is, because a lot of people can't really go to work because they're going to be lifted and put into an auto rickshaw, or they're going to be lifted and put in a car, which is a big dignity issue for a lot of people, and they would choose rather to not to work. So that's the barrier that we are eliminating. Once we bridge that gap, we will have the ability to transport people more comfortably, and therefore they will become they'll get a better livelihood and lift them out of poverty. So that's the idea behind this particular vehicle. Also, for folks who are sick, the healthcare becomes easier. Accessing hospitals and clinics become easier, or also for social activities and so on. And thirdly, in terms of education, disabled kids, especially disabled girl children, do not need to be kept at home just because they're disabled. We will provide an opportunity for them to go to school easily. So that's the whole idea. And if you look at it from a numbers perspective, each deployed low-cost vehicle will give a livelihood for a family. Some driver will get a job. There will be, based on three rides per day over a 5-year period, we will have 5,475 rides. And overall in a year, we will save close to 3.75 tons of CO2 emissions. So those are the massive impacts that we believe this vehicle will create. So this is what we wanted to highlight as far as impact. And finally, when we come to CSR, the segment of disability is usually considered as a segment that is always living on dole, something that is constantly needing a government support. So that becomes a big problem, because they don't see that as something that will yield good returns, and therefore there is no investment. And the sector is generally, because of this, not just because of this, the government also doesn't pay as much attention as it needs to, and the sector is very neglected. Now, my thought process for the CSR, the need for CSR, that it doesn't mean that it has to be an eternal grant giving exercise. It can be something made like our company, which actually can sustain itself with a certain amount of initial capital and also provide a lot of opportunities for a lot of people, therefore creating a massive impact. And that's what I want to highlight for in terms of the need for a CSR. It can be sustained into a good, it can be turned into a good sustainable investment, making it into a reasonably profitable company as well. So reasonably profitable social enterprise. So that is the need of the hour. I hope some of the folks that are listening to this can think about not just us, but assistive technology space in general. There are a lot of disabled people in the world, over 1 billion. 1 in 7 person in the world is a disabled person. So there is huge opportunity to help people with disability, and there is it can be, there are lots of enterprises which can be supported, which will end up not only creating a social upliftment, but also financial upliftment. So that's sort of what my thoughts are. I'm happy and open for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Srikrish, for taking through your journey of your startup, like which is creating a bigger impact, and like much happier to get into questions which we already received from participants, like those who joined today. So Aditi, coming back to you with the first question. So what as you work with a lot corporates, foundations, like what do you feel about partnering? Like how corporates really feel about partnering with startups for carrying out their CSR initiative? They must do a lot of projects with various type of stakeholders. What do you think their outlook when it comes to partnering with startups?
So the few organizations that have funded us, they were, I would say, the first one was J&J Global Health, which was an impact arm of J&J. A lot of it had to do with the relationship we had with them, since we were previously employed with them. There were people we had worked for. So a lot is based on the initial relationship that the founder or founders establish with these funders. So that becomes the basis on which people put their faith in you and put their trust in you, and say that, okay, now we will deploy some funds. We know that you have run a successful business before, so we know that you will make a success out of this funds that we deploy to you. So I think in the first case, that's what worked for us. In the second case, I think COVID in a strange, twisted way played in our favor, because there was suddenly this massive need for health information amongst the masses, with the folks in the low income segment suffering from not getting access to good health information, being plagued by a lot of myths, which was not ideal. So that's when ACT Grants, the funder that helped us with the family health app, came forward and was really useful so we seem to fit the bill about what they wanted. So I think, just to sort of summarize, one is the relationship that the founders have with the funding agency. It could be CSR arm, or it could be a public health fund. And secondly, it is the need of the hour. Like everything has to work right in your favor for things to happen. So I think both are as important.
Thank you, Aditi. Coming to Srikrish, so you would have approached a lot of corporates looking for CSR and like being associated with as a B2B partner in a lot of cases. Like how you feel the same thing, like what corporates feel or foundations feel and partnering with startups to do their CSR. So can you throw some light on from your experience?
Sure. In our case, what we definitely wanted was we didn't want continuous. That was something that we clearly outlined, that for jump starting something is when you need funding. In our case, right, for jump starting something, and then what we needed was just continual business. That's it. So when we went and approach, and we still continue to approach a lot of businesses and say there is a need for this special transportation. So give us an opportunity to serve you, right? So that is, we don't go with the idea of getting grants, but we go with the idea of getting business. That's what we want. That's exactly what we want, because that makes us sustainable. Because a CSR grant may be here today, it may not be there tomorrow, right? You can't eternally be dependent on that. You need to build a service or a product or something that makes sense for the market. And once you're able to do that, and once you're able to prove that, okay, this is something like a valuable product that is there, and at the same time creating the impact that it needs to. Every company is there. I wouldn't say every company. Okay, many companies are interested in having an inclusive employment situation, right? A lot of, they want to employ people with disabilities. So if you look at, for example, I'll give you, let's just take a step back and see, okay, what is the benefit that a company gets out of hiring somebody disabled, right? So they found that the retention of people with disability in organizations is very high. So the churn is lower, and therefore the return on investment is much higher. They would rather have additional facilities like a Kickstart transportation service, have accessible buildings and so on, and encourage more people to work and see the value that people with disability bring to the table. That is sort of the environment that we want to create, right? So that's been our approach. Okay, give us the business. Yes, to start with, we do need some funding. So for example, in the case of the let's say the electric vehicle, the Gati vehicle that I showed, right? What we're saying is, okay, we do need some funding because we need to deploy it in various places, right? We'll take a pilot city, deploy it, prove to the world that it's actually providing employment to people. It's actually making their lives better. It's making grandmas go to temples easily. It's making grandpas go to churches easily, or anything like that, right? So all those people who've been sitting at home because accessible transportation was not, now suddenly it's available and it's at a lower cost. Now the person who's going to be driving the vehicle is also going to earn some money out of it. There is some goodwill that's built. There's so many positive impacts in the society that we can do. At the same time, it's only the initial investment. Once you do that, okay, once a pilot is proven in multiple cities, then people will come to accept that. Then it will become a norm. There are millions of e-rickshaws that are running across the country. Now suddenly imagine all those e-rickshaws are becoming accessible, which is not very difficult because the price point is not that much off, right? There it is. India has become a completely accessible country suddenly, right? It becomes so much easier. So it requires people to think about it, and that is the approach we need to take. When CSR can help making this available, highlighting it and saying, oh, this is something that's available in our country. Let's make it come to the market, make it visible so that it spreads by itself across the world. Once that part is done, you prove it and so on, more and more people will come, and it will become a very, very sustainable service. That's the way I look at it.
So we have few questions in the chat. Like if participants have questions, you can put in chat. So coming back to Srikrish, like as you told, like I saw a chat in the like question in the chat, like what are the challenges that you faced, like when you tried to raise CSR? Because like your startup is like perfectly a CSR match.
Right.
So, but still you faced a lot of challenges in raising it, right?
Right. So okay. So I'll the challenges that we've faced are okay. Firstly, what Aditi mentioned is very, very true, right? I mean, it's like you need to have certain network connections. It worked out well for her that J&J, she had been a part of J&J, and therefore they were able to trust her and give that thing. This is something where we were coming was something completely out of the back. Nobody has done it. Although Vidya has plenty of experience on the disability sector, she's not from the corporate world. My corporate world experience were all outside of India. I didn't do anything in India prior to coming to Kickstart. So those were the challenges that are there. And so the building the trust part was very, very difficult. And that is part one of it. Second part of it is disability. In general, disability as a sector is a neglected sector, even amongst the CSR world. So if you look at the maximum amount of funding that goes into CSR, okay, if you look at the segment of CSR, where does the maximum amount of funding? One will be healthcare, two will be education. Education is massive, right? So if you're doing an educational startup, I think close to 65% of funding goes to education, right? And then, so disability is one really tiny small pie, because the general visibility is, okay, government will take care of them, right? Or the number of people that I'm going to impact, very unfortunately not very knowledgeably done this is, the assumption is that the number of people impacted will be a lot lesser, because they don't group elderly, with the disabled folks, and there are other things, other areas which are not combined. So those are the issues that I feel. So most often when we go knock on the doors for CSR, it's either going for education, and unfortunately after COVID, which is when we got really hammered badly, we lost over 95% of our revenues and so on. So we're just hanging by a thin thread or something like that. I mean, most of the funding just went for COVID, or it goes to something like a prime minister's fund or something like that. And I don't know. I mean, so that's sort of how the CSR funding split is. So disability as a sector has been a challenge. That's been my primary challenge.
Got it. Thank you for throwing light. Like I think a lot of startups from the edutech sector is here who is trying to create impacts for them. Like I think they can start searching for. So coming to Aditi on with that. So we last time when we did with the incubators, we had a question like a chicken and egg question. Which we would like to ask you for you too. So how does it work usually? Do corporations comes to you for having some CSR initiative or some certain specific initiatives or ask the startups to collaborate with them? Or do startups go to like Satel, or startups usually go to corporates with a proposal? And what will be the primary factor for a corporation to come to a startup for doing a CSR activity?
So I think as far as, I mean, I've seen it's less likely that the corporation will come to a startup. It's more, the startup going to a corporation. But a great way to break into that, and that's a question that's been asked here about how to attract CSR funding, are these challenges and applications that are thrown up every now and then. So there's a large number of especially the big tech companies, a lot of the big pharma. I'm talking more about in my space, which is mainly health tech. They post a lot of challenges in a particular problem, where if the startup that is looking to make a start and has nothing but an idea, is at an idea stage, they do have an opportunity to pitch their idea, pitch their plan for building it out, and get some seed funding from either CSR or an organization's impact arm. So that becomes a great way to enter. But I think typically it has to be the startup or the organization going to the bigger company, because they also need to see that it's something that interests you, it is something that you're passionate enough about to pursue, and that is what gives them the reassurance that you can actually build it and keep it sustainable.
Okay, thank you for that. Like combining to that, there is two questions in the chat. So one is like whether startups need to comply on the Section 8 ATG 12A conditions, or startups are considered as vendors or hired directly. So if you can, like you as you would can throw a light to that. So because you are a private limited company, right?
Yeah, we are a for-profit private limited company, so we have not faced that challenge with most agencies. I mean, most organizations. However, there are some, like the UN organizations, for example. We did some work with UNICEF, and it ended up being pro bono work because they have no system to pay as a vendor an organization which is not registered under Section 8 or ATC. So in some of those organizations, they're very strict about that rule, that you have to have, they can only pay a non-profit, but most other organizations are not particular. They can give grants even if you're a for-profit company.
Okay, so coming to next question. Like to avail CSR grant or even to approach corporate, need to have a like to pitch this initiative. So is it necessary to go through a NGO or an incubator or a Section 8 company? Or what are the prerequisite steps that a startup need to take care to ensure successfully approaching a corporate? Or what are is there any platforms available where startups can look out and explore a particular opportunity? I think like I'll go with the question Srikrush, because like he is actively looking for opportunities. So he will have like more platforms ready with him, please.
No, see, I mean, there are a lot of people who are doing, who are startup CSR consulting organizations, right? So it's your choice. If you want to, you can go through them. We have not done that so far. We have, and that's possibly one reason why probably we have not been very lucky in terms of CSR funding as well. But we have been whatever approach what we have done, we have approached directly to corporates asking for funding, showcasing our product and how it will impact them. So that's the approach that we have taken. We have not gone through a third-party agency, but you just Google and there are a lot of guys who are doing consulting. In fact, there is even in Bangalore, there's also another company which has built a platform for CSR funding requests and so on and so forth. So there are people like that available. I have not gotten any funds from them, so I really can't comment much about that.
I think Shilpa is not, did we not understand your question, Shilpa? Would you want to?
Shilpa, if you can unmute and ask the question, you can do that, please.
I can probably answer a question, Shilpa. So basically, Shilpa, it's your choice, right? So essentially, do you need to be a private limited company, or do you need to be a Section 8 company and so on and so forth? I'll just give you a little bit of a background on this. Earlier, when we started, there were a lot more restrictions of getting CSR funding directly into a private limited. That was not possible when in 2014. The rules were that it had to go to a non-profit organization, and then it needs to come through the non-profit organization as a service that will be offered by the private limited. And then there is some sort of a MOU that's written between the non-profit and the private limited company, and then the offering gets done. So that used to be the method. Now, if you keep yourself as a Section 8 company, the only difference between there are definitely compliance rules that are different for a Section 8 company versus a private limited company. The auditing process will be a little bit different. The number of reports that you will need to file with the government is higher in a private limited company, and so on and so forth, right? You can't take any in a Section 8 company, there are limitations about profits and so on. You can take a salary, but it may also be monitored to see how much of salary you are taking and so on. So for the government may audit it and so on. That is a fundamental difference. If you are a private limited company, you are also having the opportunity for somebody external to invest, like a VC or something like that. That is not possible in a Section 8 company. At least that's my understanding. Nobody's going to invest because it's not a return or anything like that. So if it's a private limited company, somebody can take a stake in your company, invest, and then you can go for multiple rounds and you can scale well and so on. That's a fundamental difference. If generally from a CSR perspective, what I have noticed is that if you are a Section 8 company, you're probably going to get more funding easily than a private limited company. That's sort of what my experience has been.
Thank you, Srikrish, for detailedly answering that question. So I would suggest mostly startups will be looking for VC investment, so they will be private limited companies. So if they're starting a social impact startup in a Section firm, they wouldn't be able to. They can receive only impact investments or the CSR schemes. But when you have something bigger to scale up and do in a bigger way, and you need access to a bigger capital, then it's always better to have a private limited company and take it that way. So coming to Aditi with another question. So as CSR collaboration not only resulting in raising funds or but also they can open up critical partnerships also, right? I think for a startup which demands high domain expertise like healthcare sector, partnerships will be perhaps more valuable than the CSR grant, which is like relatively small. In that case, it can be best way where startups can connect with the corporates by through the CSR grants. So if a startup want to collaborate with a heavyweight player in their domain, can CSR can be a route to achieve this? What is your advice? Like as you work with a lot of corporates, like whether you were able to get into their businesses and later, or whether you made a B2B partnerships later.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, we're still trying to work that out and trying to build revenue streams with big businesses. But I think what has worked is, especially in the field that we are in, we find that the innovation cell rather than the CSR cell is what is more encouraging of the solutions that we have to offer. Because any kind of digital transformation, especially in very stable sectors like pharmaceutical industry, it takes a lot of pushing and a lot of convincing to make it happen. So we find that the most sort of conducive entry points for us is the person who's heading the digital transformation cell or the person who's heading the innovation cell rather than the CSR. The impact story comes later, but in this case, this is very specific to the sector that I'm talking about, which is digital health. But I can imagine for other sectors like we mentioned before, EdTech is flush with. So any big organization, if you have a solution in EdTech or in education or in community service, you can go directly to the CSR group, because they're already looking at those kind of opportunities. But wherever there is some sort of a tech involvement, that's when a commercial group or an innovation group is much more likely to hear out your proposal.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. So as Kickstart Caps also worked in this space, like partnering with Mphasis, that it comes helping disabled people in India. So can you elaborate how exactly the partnering with Mphasis has significantly contributed to the success of Kickstart's Caps investment?
See, we're definitely thankful to Mphasis for giving us the initial funding. I mean, it's been ages since we got the funding, but yes. So one of the things that for a company like us, the biggest learning is, we got some capital, and because our business is very capital intensive business, nobody has ever done it. We had to showcase the service. We didn't invest so much time on building a technical platform, for example, so for booking platform or things like that. But we wanted to showcase that this service is available. So the only way to do that was we ended up spending a lot more money on buying vehicles and modifying them and operating them. Now we got revenue out of the service, right? We got revenue out of the service, and that sort of helped us to keep going, right? So, and that still continues to do. So definitely, what helped us most, more than the money that Mphasis gave initially, was the fact that somebody trusted us, right? So somebody trusted us and then encouraged us and saying, okay, you know what, I am willing to bet that you guys will do a good job, and that sort of motivates a lot more people. So CSR has a lot of other benefits, right? In terms of it helps a company build itself, and it validated our idea, and the moment people were calling, and the moment people were appreciating all the work that we were doing, everybody was convinced. So it's not just about the money, but also the fact that we're getting a validation and encouragement from companies. That's been great. And subsequently, what has been a larger impact for us is these additional companies and additional institutions that has taken service from us and continue to sign long-term contracts with us. So that's been really superb. So that's what we constantly strive for. We would love to expand a lot more on that.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So, we have few questions also received from participants already. So one question connecting to this. So one question is how to start an not for profit venture in this segment, if the company is trying to create a social impact or social enhancement. So how, what do you suggest, for I'll throw this question to Sri Krishna the first, and I'll come to you, Aditi, please.
See, it's not, I mean, let's take this not for profit or for profit out of the equation. I mean, let's not worry about the for profit, not profit, what structure it is, so on and so forth. What is your product or what is your service that you're trying to provide that is going to create the impact? That's what, and is there a gap in the existing world and which you are trying to fill? That's the thing that you need to focus on. Don't worry about the mechanics of whether it's going to be a private limited, whether it's going to be a NGO, whether it's going to be a Section 8, whether it's going to be a sole proprietorship, partnership, nothing. You don't need to worry about all that. First is, do you have the product available that you believe will create the necessary impact in the society? In which case, then you need to try it out. Then that's when you meet people, validate your idea. If it is if it is something that you can develop at low cost, pitch in your money, develop it, showcase to people, or if it's just if it's an expensive thing that you're trying to build, you need external funding. Talk to a lot of people, showcase your thought, and explain to people how you're going to create impact, and the rest of it will get taken care of. Now, at some point when people are funding you, you need to make a choice whether it's going to be a private company or if it's going to be a not-for-profit. That'll entirely dependent on how you want to scale and how you want to how you want to view yourself, right? I mean, what is the model that you want to go? So I would say focus on the solution first, and then worry about the financial means or the structural means later. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Now I saw Aditi's message in the group also. So Aditi,
I was just trying to be a little efficient in answering some of the questions since they've been posted.
So I can resonate with what Srikar said. It's not about the legal formalities of the startup or the organization. It's all about creating impact.
I agree too. Yeah.
So I think these days, a lot of impact investors are on place, coming with impact, investing in NGOs or not-for-profit or Section 8 company. All these are there. So it's always whatever you feel good for you, or you are comfortable with, do that. That's what I can also suggest from my experience in this field. So any other, we can take one or two more last questions from the audience. Any questions?
Do we have a community which will be focusing on the CSR activities on disability? Because I am going through this discussion and I feel that as we are also on the disability front, we are facing the same issue of getting CSR funds from various organizations. So is there anything which we can build collaboratively where all the disability companies can come together and talk to the companies for this sector?
So at Head Start, we are working for creating a community for startups who are working in social impact, and on the other side, we are working with partnering with foundations. So obviously, you can be part of our community. We will keep you posted. We will help. We are coming with few master classes where we sit with foundations, CSR leads to make sure that you are CSR ready. So obviously we will consider as Sri Krishna already mentioned about the challenges happening in the disability sector. We will be trying to focus more on this space, because a lot of startups are solving the problem of disability or giving enabling the people. So surely we will do that. We will keep you posted on the activities happening. Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, Eben,
Yeah, please.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I had to jump out and couldn't. I'm not sure if my question got answered. But another question I'd like to, I have the opportunity to speak to Dr. Akash as well of Sark Health. And, I went back to my team and said, we should help them with funding, given the scale they've done. But like he said, right, VC funding is very difficult to come. I wanted to hear about their success. I know their work with the larger foundations, right? Somebody like Gates Foundation, or even a Zuckerberg Foundation, right? Global players, what's been their experience, and how can, because those are the only guys who do the bigger rounds of capital that they need, right? What's been their experiences with such foundations?
Hey, that's a great question. And I think, so our experience so far with foundations like that is that you have to be very aligned with their organization's goals for funding. So there are large organizations like GCC or BMGF who will say, we want to only invest and fund health worker training solutions, or we want to only work in HIV, or we want to only work in COVID. So it has to, if your alignment is right, then nothing like it, because they are great funders to get capital from. They will guide your journey. They will help you reach your impact metrics. They'll be supportive throughout the journey and drive you towards being sustainable. But if that alignment does not exist, or is not, something that works at that point for you and for them, then it's a bit of a challenge, because then it's not something that you can make it fit with their goals. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, any foundations that have assistive technology as one of their alignments?
What technology again?
Assistive technology, technology for the people with disabilities, right?
Okay.
Any foundations that...
I think Sri Krish is better placed to answer that.
Look, the emphasis is one, definitely, but not necessarily. They're doing a lot more than disability right now. So as I said, one of the places that you can start is go reach out to ATF, speak to Pratik, and see how he can help. ATF, Assistive Technology Foundation, will help. If you, you can take my contacts from Evan. I'm happy to share my details and maybe introduce you to Pratik as well. Very happy to do that, and maybe you can take it forward from there with him, and he can guide you. I mean, that's specifically, his foundation is specifically for assistive technology. So I'll put you in touch. It's not a problem.
Sure.
So I would like to mention Social Alpha and SBI Foundation because they're in the space.
True.
Tata TIS is
yes, correct. Yeah,
TIS is another organization where they are working in disability segment. So
actually, there is an entrepreneur called Praveen in this group. We've been helping him. So he's actually raised from Social Alpha. So there are players who are doing this up to 75 lakhs of funding, right? But beyond that, who do these guys go to, right? So that's why I wanted to understand those avenues of funding.
I think Aditi can share the your experience with Baraka Impact or Impact Investors in this space, for the bigger rounds.
Yeah, I think, we have yet to taste success. We're still at it. But I think certainly the conversations have been much more enriching with the impact investors. The ticket size is such that it suits our needs at this point. There are, of course, impact investors who are looking at much larger, really large scale growth, funding 50 million and above, which is not what we want. But yeah, Baraka Impact has been very supportive for us, and they have a strong focus on India and Africa. So that's also worked in our favor.
It's called Baraka, is it?
Baraka Impact. I can share you the coordinate, Varada.
Sure.
And again, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation also in the space. UN have a South-South collaboration fund, which is also for supporting impact funding in India. So I can give you a heads up for all these conversations happening around. So I saw another conversation like whether social impact startups can take debt or loans. So there is Caspian Debt, which is completely focusing on social impact startups with debt or like loan kind of funding. So there are like funds who is like supporting startups in that space also.
I think Acumen also, the Acumen Fund, but I think they are more focused on education and skills development, not so much on health.
Okay.
I think there are a ton of impact ones, but if having government as a customer is really not what they're looking for. That is not, they're not really looking to those business models. So yeah.
I can see Dilip has raised.
I think his hand has been up for a while.
So we can have Dilip's question as last question and we can wrap up.
My question is that, in CSR funding, there are these large corporates like Indian Oil, NTPC, they have huge CSR funds going into crores, thousands of crores. But every corporate, giant like that, they have their focus, like rightly how Aditya said, that somebody is focusing on education, somebody on health, somebody on water, somebody on environment, various other social impact issues. So what my question or my suggestion is that, if Head Start can come up with some kind of an online platform, where social impact innovators like us or startups like us, if you're working in water, these are the 10 organizations you can get in touch with for CSR fund. If you're in healthcare, these are the 5 organizations who are supporting healthcare, get in touch with them. These are the contact numbers or the email. So do you think something like this could help startups like us, accelerate faster getting those funds? Why am I asking this question?
Dilip, I would like to, sorry for interrupting. So as you said, like it was more exciting for me. So we are building something which you exactly mentioned here. So we are bringing few corporations. So we were scouting few corporations to be with us. Today also we had few of them join this call from the corporate CSR foundations with us. So we are building a huge network for supporting startups like you, who is working in social impact, because in last year, the funds actually got into CSR is 8,800 crore, which is like comparing to last 2 years, it is like lesser, 3 times lesser actually. Earlier year it was 24,000 crores. So believing like after COVID, now the businesses are in a good profit, like in a good positive side of the businesses. So surely this year we'll have around 24 crore or like minimum 15 crore of investments happening in this space. But we are trying to make it as like at least 2% of that funds coming to startups who is working in social impact. So we are really working on that space. Over to Dilip, like if you have something to add to that question, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And one more thing I'll just add on to this quickly. As I told you that we are working in water harvesting for farmers in drought-prone areas. So what we are deploying basically, my question is maybe to Shri Krishna, is because this is very similar to what he has developed. So we have developed a machine which is a robot. It's called KVAT, and this one machine, the cost of the machine is approximately 50 lakh rupees, a one-time investment. But every year this robot can help bring 10 crore liters of water for a village. And over a period of 10 years it can work. So every year 10 crore liter of water is what it's giving. So for a product like this, what do you feel should be the ideal way for us to approach CSR funding? Because we want them to sponsor this machine. Let the machine have a banner saying that, sponsored by IOC or sponsored by Godrej or blah, blah, blah. We are okay with that. Because if the machine gets sponsored, the operation and maintenance cost becomes very low, and it can be then paid by farmers directly. They are not dependent on any NGO or even the government.
Okay, so basically so this one particular implementation will cost around 50 lakhs. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
And okay, so have you approached, so what is stopping you from reaching out to CSR because there are a lot of CSR funds that are doing agri-related work. You just need to Google them and find them, reach out to them. That is one option, right? So you can do that. But if supposing, let's say that, you don't have the kind of network many other people may have, and it's very difficult for you to break through or so on. If you're confident about the product, can you try and do something with crowdfunding? I know it's a maybe a slightly bigger amount, but can you give it a shot? Can you create some sort of a marketing material or a powerful presentation that will showcase to people how it will benefit, and do it? So that may be something that you can definitely look at, crowdfunding. The third avenue is, of course, Agriculture Department of Governments, which, I mean, some governments are really a lot more easy to work with than some others. In my personal experience, I have managed to sell a couple of my smaller vehicles to Telangana government. So that's worked out well. They've been very, very conducive to trying out something different. So you can pitch to a government like that, and see. I mean, these are the things that I can think of. You need to showcase your product and ensure that it is something that will help. It will create impact, and it will help the environment. And then once the results are out, people will come to you.
Thanks, Sri. The good news is that the robot that you're making, it's called Kevat. It's awarded by Maharashtra state government. This was the pre-COVID period, and for 2 years this project got a little delayed. But now we have got some very positive response from the Gujarat government, because we are working in Kutch, which is a drought-prone district.
Right.
So we are getting a positive response there. So we are trying for it, but it's all about deploying the first machine and stuff like that. So that is where we look for funds.
So, I mean,
we can connect post this call for detail for understanding detail, and surely we can connect with few of the government agencies and like PUCs where they can help you.
Thank you so much.
As we are running short of time, I think we can wrap up this conversation at that moment. We will coming back to with few corporates or few incubators and few startups in the coming Fridays with the CSR Friday. Aditi and Sri Krish, thank you so much for joining today, and those who are joined today to listen, get insight on this social impact and creating a better India. Thank you everyone who joined today. So see you soon with another CSR Friday with another set of people who are working on creating impact. Till then, bye.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.